Last week, we talked about learned helplessness. What happens when the brain learns that effort doesn't matter? I remember learning about this for the first time nearly 45 years ago as a college freshman, sitting in psychology class trying to understand why people stop trying even when they're capable of so much more. What fascinated Martin Seligman and what has stuck with me all these years was that not everyone gave up. In his early research, some of the dogs resisted helplessness. They kept trying, and that raised a powerful question. If helplessness is learned, why doesn't it happen to everyone? That question followed Dr. Seligman beyond the lab and into human behavior. He refused to believe that once someone learned to be helpless, their course in life was permanently set. Instead, he began asking a different question. Why don't some people give up? Why do some athletes, students, and performers stay hopeful, productive, and resilient even after setbacks? The answer he found wasn't talent or luck, it was how they explained adversity to themselves. Optimists tended to see setbacks as temporary, specific to a situation, and influenced by factors outside themselves. Pessimists, on the other hand, viewed setbacks as permanent, pervasive across all areas of life and personal, blaming themselves. And here was Dr. Seligman's breakthrough. Just as helplessness can be learned, optimism can be learned too. This insight became the foundation of applied positive psychology, and it's why mental performance and mindset training focuses so heavily on how athletes think, not on just what they do. Welcome back to the mental weight room, where we train the mindset that shows up when things don't go your way and you still have to compete. I'm your host, Antoinette Daytalk, and this is part 2 of our series on Martin Seligman's work. In part 1, we explored learned helplessness and how athletes can unknowingly learn that nothing they do matters. Today, we're focusing on the antidote, learned optimism. This isn't about blind positivity, motivational slogans, or pretending adversity doesn't exist. Learned optimism is a skill, and like any skill in sports, it can be trained. Martin Seligman's early research showed something disturbing. When individuals experienced repeated, controllable negative events, they may stop trying altogether. But as the research continued, something unexpected emerged. Not everyone, or rather every dog, became helpless. Some of them resisted. They stayed active and they kept trying. That observation sparked a pivot that would eventually reshape psychology. Instead of asking only what causes breakdown, Dr. Seligman began asking what explains resilience. This marked a major shift from studying pathology, or what's wrong, to studying strength, or what's right. What Dr. Seligman uncovered was that resilient, hopeful people don't experience fewer problems, they simply explain problems differently. This pattern became known as explanatory style, the habitual way we interpret setbacks, mistakes, losses, and adversity. He found 2 distinct styles. Pessimists tend to see negative events as permanent, thinking this will never change. They view setbacks as pervasive, believing one failure affects everything, and they often see them as personal, blaming themselves entirely. In mental performance training, we call this a fixed mindset. In sports, that can sound like this kind of thinking. I always choke, or I'm just not cut out for this, or one bad game ruins everything. Optimists, by contrast, interpret negative events or adversity as temporary, understanding that setbacks won't last forever. They see them as specific, realizing that one failure doesn't define every situation. And they recognize external factors, understanding that there are influences outside of themselves that contribute. In mental performance training, we call this a growth mindset. And in sports, this might sound like, that rep didn't go well, adjust and move on. Or this was one performance, not my identity. Or I can influence what happens next. This was a breakthrough. Dr. Seligman realized that just as helplessness could be learned through experience, optimism could also be learned through training. That meant athletes weren't stuck with the mindset they brought into the gym, the field, or the competition floor. Their inner dialogue was coachable. One of the most practical tools to emerge from this work is what Dr. Seligman called the ABCDE model. This is a mental training framework that we regularly adapt in sports psychology and mental performance training. It begins with A, adversity, the event that happens, such as a mistake, a loss, a tough conversation, or a bad call. Next comes B, for belief, the story the athlete tells themselves about that event. This is where mindset lives. Next is C, for consequences that follow, the emotional and behavioral results of whatever your belief is, which might include a drop in confidence, fading effort, or tightening focus. Disputation comes next for D. That's where the athlete actively challenges or disputes unhelpful beliefs using evidence, perspective, and alternative explanations. Finally, the E, energization, is the shift in emotion, posture, effort, and engagement that follows a healthier belief. This isn't positive thinking. This is cognitive strength training. Why does this matter in sports? Because under pressure, athletes don't rise to the level of their talent. They fall to the level of their explanatory habits or their mindset. Learned optimism helps athletes recover faster after mistakes, stay engaged when outcomes are uncertain, and separate their identity from their performance and maintain effort when results lag behind preparation. In other words, it restores control. Hope is not wishful thinking. Hope is the belief that what you do next matters. And that belief can be trained, rep by rep, just like physical strength. Dr. Seligman's work helps psychology move beyond simply treating what's wrong to strengthening what's right. That same shift is happening in mental performance training for athletes. We don't just fix confidence after it breaks, we train it before the pressure hits. Thanks for joining me today. If you found this episode helpful, please pass it on to a teammate, coach, or anyone who could use a mental boost. Leave us a review, tap 5 stars, and don't forget to subscribe or follow us on social media so you never miss a mental workout. This is Coach Antoinette signing off, and until next time, keep training your brain like you train your body and keep pushing your limits.